So you think you were right? Bring it on, prove me wrong. Go put up a fight. The where do will knock you down.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥?
취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 거절을 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색. 김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
In our headlines on this Wednesday, December 18th, here in South Korea. The Ministers of Finance and Foreign Affairs held a press conference with members of the foreign media earlier this morning to reassure the international community about the perceived risks of the political fallout in the country. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court holds its third press conference with regard to its impeachment trial of the president, confirming that the judicial proceedings will not be aired live to maintain order and prevent disruptions. And the Prosecutor's Office is transferring its investigation into charges of insurrection by President Yoon and former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min to the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials. Words of reassurance were shared by Korea's top economic and diplomatic officials at a press conference with members of the foreign media earlier this morning amid uncertainty over the potential broader ripple effects of the country's political predicament. Our Kim Bo-kyung covers their remarks and more.
South Korea's constitutional system and emergency response mechanisms are functioning well, despite heightened uncertainties stemming from recent domestic and international factors. This, according to Deputy Prime Minister Choi Sang-mok, who also serves as Minister of Economy and Finance. The Finance and Foreign Ministries jointly held a press conference with foreign correspondents in Seoul on Wednesday to address concerns the international community might have over South Korea's economic and diplomatic situation. The government responded promptly to the volatile financial and foreign exchange situation following the martial law decree imposition and Yoon's impeachment, Choi said, stabilizing the markets. Political uncertainty, too, is resolving, according to Choi, with the budget and key tax bills being passed in the National Assembly on December 10th, through close cooperation between the government and both the ruling and opposition parties. While stressing how three major global credit rating agencies assessed that Seoul's political situation would only have a limited impact on its credit rating, Choi vowed to stay vigilant.
We will remain vigilant and bring together all available public and private sector resources to manage the economy as stably as possible, given the possibility of market fluctuations and the potential dampening of economic sentiment.
The Finance Ministry's top priority will be to maintain external trust and confidence in the South Korean economy. For this, Choi pledged to operate a 24-hour monitoring system for the financial and foreign exchange markets and enhance incentives for foreign investment. The ministry will develop plans to strengthen fundamental industrial competitiveness, and for the people's livelihoods, it plans to front-load budget spending into the first half of next year to bolster the economy. The economic policy direction for 2025 will also soon be announced. Meanwhile, though there could be some questions over the sustainability of Seoul's foreign policy, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol emphasized he would fully maintain the current policy under the acting presidency.
We will maintain a steadfast ROK-US alliance and friendly cooperation with Japan and actively work to ensure the momentum for trilateral cooperation among Korea, the US, and Japan is sustained.
While adding South Korea will brace for a resumption of a US-North Korea dialogue under the Donald Trump administration, the minister added it will consult closely with China to further improve bilateral ties. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And separately, at an economic ministerial meeting also earlier today, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok pledged support for investment initiatives by Korean businesses. The pledge was made in light of concerns over a possible slump in corporate investment amid the political instability. The Choi stressed that corporate investment is key to overcoming both domestic and global uncertainties, adding that companies need to invest in advanced technologies and facilities to remain competitive in the global industrial arena. The Constitutional Court has requested all evidence in relation to the impeachment trial be submitted by next Tuesday, that is Christmas Eve, and has shared intentions not to broadcast the hearings. Our Kim Jung-sil explains.
The Constitutional Court has ordered President Yoon to submit key evidence by December 24th. Lee Jin, the court's press officer, elaborated on the specifics of the order.
We've demanded the president to submit his plan for presenting evidence, a list of evidence, martial law proclamation number 1, and the records from the cabinet meeting related to this case by December 24th.
The court also addressed its decision to not allow live broadcasting of the hearings, emphasizing the need to maintain order and prevent disruptions.
I think we need to look at this from two perspectives. First, there were reports that President Yoon requested a live broadcast, but the court made it clear that exceptions are not allowed. Second, this case could potentially escalate public pressure, and the court seems focused on minimizing the risk of what's often called a trial by public opinion.
Some legal experts believe that live broadcasting could be misused for political messaging.
There is a danger that Yoon would try to use that live broadcast as a platform once again to appeal and incite his diehard supporters. So I think it's a very sensible decision that they declined Yoon's request.
Delays in delivering the court's documents and notices to the presidential office have also raised concerns. Security staff reportedly refused to accept the documents, prompting speculation about potential stalling tactics.
The way he's refusing to cooperate with the investigation in and of itself can constitute grounds for impeachment. And in fact, that's what the Constitutional Court said with regard to the impeachment of Park Geun-hye. They said that Park Geun-hye's refusal to cooperate with the investigation team showed her unwillingness to uphold the constitutional order.
The Constitutional Court will hold its first deliberation on December 19th, marking a significant step in the trial against Yoon. While still in the early stages of review, the court is expected to discuss key issues, underscoring the gravity of the case. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
And the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials will undertake the insurrection case against the president and former interior minister to allow for greater efficiency. Our Peunji reports.
The prosecutors who have been investigating the imposition of martial law on December 3rd will now transfer the insurrection case against President Yoon Suk-yeol and former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min to the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials. The prosecution service announced Wednesday that it made this decision after consulting with the CIO. This appears to be part of their efforts to prevent overlapping investigations into the sitting president, as Yoon was hit with summons from both the prosecution and the CIO. This comes after President Yoon did not show up for questioning on Wednesday morning, as requested by the Joint Investigation Team, which is a collaboration between the police, the Defense Ministry, and the CIO. The team said they would review sending another summons request. Separately, the special police team investigating President Yoon attempted to raid the president's security service center on Tuesday, but failed to get inside the building even with a search warrant. After a standoff of almost 8 hours at the gates with the security team refusing to cooperate, the investigators left at around 6 p.m. when the search warrant expired. The police have been aiming to get hold of the security service center's computer servers that contain records of phone calls, including those between President Yoon and the National Police Agency Commissioner General. President Yoon reportedly made 6 phone calls to the police chief on the night of the martial law declaration and ordered him to arrest lawmakers. This is the second time that the police have failed to conduct a successful raid of the presidential office. Investigators were also blocked by the presidential security team last Wednesday and obtained only a portion of materials through voluntary submission. Peunji, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the president's legal team addressed the press for the first time back on Tuesday and firmly denied allegations of insurrection. Our Iuni has details.
President Yoon will attend any public hearings for his impeachment review at the Constitutional Court, although his attendance is not mandatory. That is according to his lawyer, Seok Dong-yeon, on Tuesday, who said the president will confidently present his position in court if public hearings are scheduled, emphasizing that Yoon did not commit insurrection. Lawyer Seok, who is involved in the selection of Yoon's legal team, told reporters that from a legal perspective, the president is not concerned about insurrection charges, but because of the investigations, he will respond, likely to the trial phase. The lawyer emphasized that an insurrection is an action that is used to seize power, but a president is already in power. Therefore, the charges don't hold up legally. He stated that the focus should be on the opposition party's mismanagement of national affairs and violations of the Constitution. Lawyer Seok also outlined a 3-way approach to the legal response: the investigation, the impeachment trial, and the court proceedings. Additionally, he clarified that the defense teams for the insurrection investigation and the impeachment trial will be separate, as they are fundamentally different. Meanwhile, no additional comments were made regarding whether the president will attend for the prosecutor's summons over allegations of insurrection and abuse of power. He also emphasized the need for coordination between the various investigative agencies regarding the issue of attendance, noting that a statement will be made in the coming days once these matters are reviewed and finalized. Iunhee, Arirang News.
And over at the Parliament, the heads of the ruling and opposition parties sat down today and agreed to put aside their differences and to amicably address state affairs. Our political correspondent Ishihu covers their talks.
A first meeting between the leaders of the 2 major rival parties since the opposition-led push to impeach President Yoon passed through the National Assembly. The acting chairman and floor leader of the ruling People Power Party, Kwon Sung-dong, and the chairman of the main opposition Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung, met on Wednesday afternoon to discuss ways to stabilize state affairs and the political situation at the parliament. There was consensus between the 2 leaders to lessen political offensives against each other's camps to restore stability at the National Assembly.
We can recover from the chaotic political situation if we, the legislature, can refrain from over-campaigning and instead calmly put our heads together for the sake of people's livelihoods and security.
Acknowledging each other, a bit of give and take, and finding the right compromises to reach mutual agreements is the proper role of politics. But sadly, the situation we have here now is a war instead of politics.
But they also made respective suggestions, with Lee once again urging the PPP leader to accept his offer of a joint talk between the rival parties and the government.
I think Chairman Kwon has a pessimistic view on the joint consultative body to stabilize state affairs that I suggested. We, the Democratic Party, can be flexible in many aspects as necessary, but I think we need to have a practical consultation.
And Kwon suggesting that the DP withdraw some of the opposition-pushed impeachment motions against government officials currently pending at the Constitutional Court of Korea.
I ask that the National Assembly withdraw the impeachment motions that were overshoot and done as strong political offensives, to lessen the burden on the Constitutional Court and take the pressure off the state affairs that have been paralyzed by the impeachment motions.
The rival party spokespeople told reporters following a closed-door talk between the two that they also talked about the economy, with PPP suggesting legislation to help the AI and semiconductor industries, and DP suggesting a supplementary budget and amendments to protect small-scale stock shareholders. This, as the opposition members of the National Assembly Committee working on nominating 3 constitutional judges to fill the empty seats at the court on Wednesday morning chose to replace its former committee chair, the PPP lawmaker Jung Jum-sik, with the DP lawmaker Park Ji-won to lead them throughout the upcoming process, while the PPP refused to participate in the meeting in protest. The PPP has argued that acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo does not hold the right to appoint the 3 constitutional judges suggested by the National Assembly, while the National Assembly Speaker and the opposition continue to refute this argument. 이시후, Arirang News.
And acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo may convene a special cabinet meeting as early as Thursday in response to a number of bills unilaterally passed by opposition lawmakers at the Parliament. According to government sources, Mr. Han may exercise the right of reconsideration, or he may choose to veto the 6 contentious bills, including the Grain Management Act. He may also have to decide on opposition-led efforts to fill constitutional court vacancies, but it reportedly remains unclear whether he has the authority to appoint personnel, as while the president's executive authority has been suspended, his seat is not considered empty. North Korea's appalling abuse of human rights has been denounced yet again at the UN General Assembly in a resolution for the 20th year in a row. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The UN General Assembly on Tuesday adopted a resolution condemning North Korea's systematic and widespread human rights violations. And this year's adoption marked the 20th straight year that the UN General Assembly has done so. This year's resolution emphasized the need for the international community to address the human rights situation in North Korea in a unified manner, while expressing concerns over the regime's declaration that the pursuit of reunification with South Korea had ended. The resolution also requests the UN General Assembly's president to hold a high-level meeting to hear testimony from members of civil society and various experts to address the human rights violations and abuses in North Korea. It also included repeated calls for North Korea to end practices and laws that suppress freedom of thought, expression, and religion. And as they have each year, North Korea responded to the passage of the resolution, referring to the regime with anger. North Korea's ambassador to the UN, Kim Sung, said that the North condemns in the strongest terms and totally rejects the draft resolution submitted by the European Union. He called it a grave politically motivated provocation aimed at violating the dignity and sovereignty of its state. Kim also called the resolution nothing but a political plot and an anti-North Korean confrontational document that was completely fabricated with falsehood and distorted information by hostile forces. The UN General Assembly has adopted the resolution on North Korean human rights annually since 2005 to shed light on the regime's human rights violations and to renew calls for Pyongyang to tackle the issue. However, no progress has been made as the resolution is not legally binding under international law. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, from AI-powered games to smart home gadgets, Korea is turning to technology to transform elderly care and to prevent social isolation within its aging population. Our Moon Hae-ryun shows us how.
In one of South Korea's northernmost townships, a modest building is pioneering cutting-edge tech care services. Gwaninmyeon, Gyeonggi-do's first AI senior care town, brings AI care, medical visits and digital education to a place where seniors over 65 years old make up nearly half the population.
This phrase's literal translation is the AI love room, which gives a hint as to what might be waiting for us behind these doors. So let's go and take a look.
Twice a week, participants aged 77 to 89 gather here for AI-powered games and activities designed to prevent dementia and boost social interaction, bringing energy and connection to those living alone.
Games like popping balloons on the table are great for old people like us who have no strength in our fingers. Seeing people face to face and talking to them is also a great source of healing for me because old people are usually just at home.
Augmented reality provides fun exercise routines to keep the participants active, while this digital kiosk helps seniors navigate those found in stores, banks, and hospitals.
It's important for seniors to have an open mind to embrace new technology in this digital age. I also hope new devices are developed quickly so that they're easy for seniors to use.
But for those unable to visit the welfare center, a mobile app offers basic health checks, hospital bookings, and a call service. And in the capital city of Seoul, smart care services for the elderly are available in the comfort of their own homes, such as this plug. It sends real-time data to a control center which is manned throughout the night, alerting staff to check in if appliances go unused for extended periods. An AI call service also checks in with senior citizens around the city.
오늘은 좀 어떠세요?
너무 피곤해요.
Games, apps, and call services may not seem like much, but they are vital to taking care of the country's aging population.
With more single-person households and an aging population, the risk of social isolation is growing, but community staff and care workers lack the resources to check on everyone.
As South Korea's aging population continues to grow, programs like these bridging the gap between technology and human connection ensure no one is left behind. 문혜련, Arirang News.
And we are counting down exactly 1 week to Christmas Day. And for those of you here in Seoul, we shed light on a few places that are seeking to share the most of the holiday season in the capital city. Our An Sung-jin was out and about.
The year-end festivities have returned. It's the season where friends and families gather together to celebrate and get the feel of Christmas. Ornaments glisten and stars shine on Christmas trees, creating the perfect photo spot.
Department stores have geared up for Christmas this year to attract visitors, and this Christmas market offers various activities, including a carousel ride.
From glue vine to a giant Christmas tree, this Christmas market has opened in the center of Seoul. With more than 40 Christmas-themed shops, it lures in visitors with its vivid colors.
It's been so busy that I didn't even know it was Christmas, but I'm glad I get to spend time with my kid out here like this.
I love to be able to find like typical desserts and stuff from Europe, let's say, and it's amazing because you have the spirit of Christmas here, even in Korea.
In another part of the city, this digital media facade shows Christmas scenes through illustrations and lights beaming from the screen.
The decorations here are so fancy. It's nice to be here.
Though we're now retired designers, we've worked in this area for a long time, so it's nice to see all the decorations out here.
Retailers are rushing to showcase their annual year-end decorations, not only for marketing their brand image, but also to help boost declining in-person. Stores this year have focused on not only displays, but more interactive spaces to keep customers for a longer time. A professor says these eye-grabbing attractions could boost domestic consumption.
People tend to open their wallet when they're a bit more excited, and these decorations act as a catalyst for that. Not only for those actually passing by with social media, it induces consumption, leading to a ripple effect of drawing in more people.
These Christmas decorations not only bring a festive atmosphere, but also a chance to boost the local economy. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
It was the coldest morning of this winter so far, as Seoul dropped to minus 6.2 degrees Celsius this morning. Even during the daytime, the temperature was no higher than 1 degree, and the feels-like temperature was minus 4 degrees. Along with the cold, a lot of snow fell in some west coast areas in Jeju Island. While a heavy snow advisory is still in place, the west coast areas of the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island will have more snow until tonight. In addition, heavy snow is forecast in the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and northern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do province. Up to 10 centimeters of snow will accumulate in these areas by early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, a freezing morning will be seen across the country. Chuncheon and Daegu -5 degrees, Gwangju and Gyeongju -3. Highs will move up to 5 degrees in Seoul, Busan 11 degrees. The temperature is expected to rise from tomorrow afternoon and then become cold again from the weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, and today we touch upon Korea's financial markets.
Hi, Chef Ryan here. Today we're going to make sweet potato bites and kimchi canapes.
We change today, inspiring daily life. We create tomorrow, inspired by innovation. Change today, create tomorrow. Lotte.
The local bourse and the foreign exchange market have been shifting back and forth between gains and losses in response to the latest political events here. But overall, they appear to be holding steady. With more on Press Perspective today. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Press Perspective. It's December 18th here in Seoul. I'm Min San-hee. Pundits believe the risks surrounding the South Korean stock market have been priced in for now, while its foreign exchange market seeks to regain strength. For more on this, I have Sam Kim with Bloomberg here in the studio. Sam, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I also have Professor Song Soo-young at Chungang University with us virtually. Professor Song, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and good evening to you.
Right. Sam, we'll start here in the studio. Let's begin with the latest on the local bourse. What has been the stock market response to the local political events?
Well, ever since the martial law decree was announced on December 3rd, at least in the days following that command issued by President Yoon, although he retracted that later, the stock markets received a level of shock that they had not seen for a while. What happened in the days was at least tens of billions of dollars were lost in terms of market cap for the KOSPI and the Kosdaq markets. And that really rattled investor confidence in Korea's markets, including stocks, also the foreign exchange markets. You know, the won depreciated very rapidly to a level that Koreans had not seen since the global financial crisis. And the won losing its value against the dollar makes investors outside Korea feel that they have to pull more money out of Korea, which kind of added insult to injury there. And what's happened ever since was that there's been some political uncertainties that weighed on that investor confidence, although I think policymakers moved very quickly to ease those concerns by pledging what they called unlimited liquidity if necessary. So that's kind of helped stem the bleeding in the markets. And I think we've seen the stock markets coming back up quite well, although it's holding at a level where people feel it may not hold for too long. So nothing's out of the woods yet. Yeah.
Right. Sam, we've also been told that investors were already quite wary of Korean stocks, even way before the political turmoil here. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I would describe it as the stock markets jumping out of the frying pan into the fire when the martial law decree was issued. It was already having a tough time, given that the chip cycle was entering what they describe as a bust cycle, meaning that the memory chip industry that Korea relies on very much for economic growth was starting to see some signs that demand was weakening. Even though exports of semiconductors were doing okay year on year, the growth pace itself had been gradually easing, which was raising fears among investors that at some point the party is going to be over, right? But that was something on top of the worries that when Mr. Trump comes back to the White House, he would impose what he calls universal tariffs, meaning that Korea would be among the countries being hit by his tariffs. And given the fact that Korea is a very export-reliant nation in terms of economic growth, policymakers were very worried that it would deal a particularly hard setback to Korea's economy. So the stock markets were pretty kind of pricing in those worries before the martial law turmoil even began.
Right, and even well before that, actually, here, Professor Song, the Yoon administration had been talking about capital market reform even before, of course, the hardships we're seeing on the stock market as we speak. What do you recommend to ensure productive capital market reform, Professor Song?
Yeah, primarily we have a long history about the weakness of Korean capital market, dubbed as a Korea discount, since 1997, the East Asian economic crisis. So the major part were the foreign investors and why the Korean stock market has been discounted in comparison with the Taiwanese and the Japanese companies. So the point lies in that because of the structure of the Korean economy generally, so the corporate governance that is hindered by the cross-holding structures of many family-owned conglomerate in the our economy depends too much on the conglomerates, and as Sam has pointed out, that we depend too much on some conglomerates that export such as very advanced products, such as semiconductors and auto vehicles. So, to that regard, our economy is very relatively weak in domestic consumption and domestic demand. So currently, in addition to that, in addition to the already existing Korea discount, one more very political and very uncertain area that could incur really serious investment loss due to such as war and some kind of the conflict between the South and North Korea. So that has been almost at first, I thought when I heard the martial law decree was announced, then I thought there was a war between the North and South Korea. So, but actually, it was like it was committed by the incumbent president, and so it is an auto-golpe or self-coup d'etat. So that creates a really very dangerous and risky hollow for particularly for the foreign investors, and that could help the foreign investors come in the Korean stock market, and they would like to just focus on how easily, how quickly they can withdraw their money without any hindering. That would be the point, and that could add up an additional risk factor to the Korean stock market. So that is really bad for the Korean economy in light of the Korea discount, some plus extra Korea discount. So what I would like to say is to settle down and stabilize the political situation, resolve the current kind of some stalemate between the opposition party and the incumbent president. That should be resolved as quickly as possible. And expecting that, the reason why we have seen that the exchange rate, the depreciation once occurred very quickly, steeply in the Korean won against the US dollar, has been recovered, but still hovering around a much higher level than it used to be. So to that regard, that is still there is uncertainty and risk. And also, what I'm most concerned is how to recover the people's consumption sentiment, because this is the holiday season, and I remember Sam has just mentioned that he gave up going abroad because of too expensive the travel fees. But also, who can afford this kind of very Christmas season under this very uncertain and very unstable political situation? So one way to advise the Korean economy is to make sure people's at least feel a little bit safer, but still we need to do something for the out of the woods.
Right, indeed. Right. Sam had spoken about surrendering plans to travel abroad this Christmas owing to the high exchange rate. And that being said, as you mentioned earlier, the foreign exchange market here, Sam, was very quick to respond to the political turmoil. And as Professor Song has also mentioned, the South Korean won continues to lose quite a bit of strength against major currencies. What, Sam, are analysts saying about the future for the Korean currency?
Well, it's not too bright at the moment. As far as I understand, policymakers, including the Bank of Korea governor, have expressed quite an amount of worries about, the won staying pretty weak, compared to what it was before the martial law decree was announced. Last time I checked, before I was coming here, the currency rate stood at 14.35 won per dollar. It had gone up all the way above 14.41 per dollar in the days after the martial law turmoil. So, it's still pretty serious. And the reason this is really important to watch for is Korea is, as I've mentioned, a very export-oriented nation that has an open economy, very vulnerable to what happens abroad because it relies so much on imports for food and energy. At least 90% of energy that it uses comes from outside, meaning that Koreans have to spend their won and then exchange it for dollars to buy what they need. So the currency rate is arguably the most important indicator of how the economy would do. And, there are a lot of people who, travel abroad, who send their kids to school abroad. It just puts a lot of economic pressure on them. So it's very important that they try to, remove this concern of the political turmoil, which is adding, I think, almost unnecessary, an extra sort of weight in terms of the burden on the currency. So it's the policymakers' priority to be able to ease the political concerns that's weighing on the won.
Right. Professor Song, just like the stock market, the local currency had been losing strength against major currencies even before the political turmoil. Professor Song, how do you explain this phenomenon and what are the broader economic implications of a weaker won?
Yeah. As Sam has pointed very succinctly and to the point, I agree with his opinions. But what I will how to utilize or how to make the most of the weakening currency. Of course, this could be beneficial for the export. Clearly, as we have seen, according to the data for the past several months and the quarters, we have seen that the weakening Korean won currency could help make some net exports to grow. But the problem is President Trump, which will be inaugurated in January, and he has announced that he would make some broad tariff, and then the target countries is included. Korea is included as a target country, so that could be really the depreciation of Korean won could help to circumvent the obstacles caused by the tariff, 25% of the additional, to maintain the competitiveness in the U.S. market. But however, what matters, what I'm concerned most is because I do not agree with today's remark or in the Financial Times, the chairperson of Bank of Korea has announced that the biggest concern lies in that the export tariff imposed by Trump administration. But what I'm most concerned right now is domestic demand. I feel like it's very close to the deflation situation or liquidity trap, and the people begin to tighten their purse, and then consumption is contracted. That could make matters worse. And so in order to overcome these situations, we need to do to make a portfolio, particularly in make more export to China and Russia or other countries. And then with the help of the Trump administration, he announced that he is going to make some peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia and to settle down the international conflict. And not only, of course, in Syria and the Middle East. Then once that is accomplished, then the Korean market, as long as we can resolve and overcome these political obstacles, then the economy and the domestic economy will maybe is going to recover, and the consumption will return to what it used to be or better than. Then the consumption sentiment could help recover the Korean economy. And then even though despite the bust cycle of the semiconductor and some cycle in the U.S. market, I really look forward to some, the earlier the Korean domestic demand is recovered, that could help alleviate the burden of the economic stagnation of the people.
All right, and staying with such efforts by the government, Sam, relevant government authorities here, they have a pledge to seek to address market jitters. And as you mentioned earlier, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok has pledged unlimited liquidity to stabilize markets. How effective do you suppose have his words been thus far?
For now, I think the stock markets have kind of understood that it might work. And there's also a possibility that investors are buying the dip, given the stock markets were the sector that got hit the most after the martial law decree. But the one FX market hasn't really recovered to the level before the martial law, erupted. Like I said earlier, I think the Bank of Korea and the Finance Ministry want to make sure that their pledge for what they call unlimited liquidity is going to be taken very seriously by markets. And in order to follow up with that, I think the Bank of Korea, as far as I remember, has spent about 14 trillion won that would amount to about $10 billion in order to buy what they call repurchase agreements, which is essentially a way to flush the markets with more money. And that's actually helped some of the concerns ease in terms of the market jitters. And then also the, today the Bank of Korea governor held a press conference where I was a little surprised to hear this explicitly said by him, where he said, the Bank of Korea and the authorities have conducted smoothing operations, which are a way of saying, yes, we are selling dollars in order to shore up the won. And it's quite rare for policymakers to be saying that in public because there's risk of the country being put on the U.S. Treasury watch list as a potential manipulator of foreign exchange markets. But then I think there's some understanding in the U.S. as well. This is an extraordinary situation for South Korea. And there could be more steps coming up, as long as the volatility or the lack of stability in the market continues, which the Bank of Korea governor has said that they would deal with, with enough steps to do that. So I think they're still struggling and fighting. What they see is volatility, and the most important thing for them is for the political turmoil to gradually ease down so that there's some sense coming back to the markets, and that's what they're looking for with the Constitutional Court now deliberating on the impeachment motion, with the Parliament being more quiet, more or less after the impeachment ruckus that happened.
Right. Meanwhile, beyond the financial markets, Professor Song, next year's economic growth prospects for South Korea have been lowered to 1.9% by the central bank. Are we looking at perhaps a lower growth rate in the event of the second Trump administration failing perhaps to seek a truce between Russia and Ukraine?
Clearly, the Bank of Korea's chairperson's remarks about the 1.9%, which has been lowered much less than what was forecasted by the IMF and the other OECD. As far as I know, it was 2.1%, but because why this occurs is clearly because we know that the effect of the tariff was already known. And then what matters most right now is, as Sam has mentioned, that the unlimited supply of money is not enough to recover the consumer's sentiment. Clearly, it could deliver the signal that stabilization of the financial industry and also the some kind of manipulation, despite the potential blame by the United States that manipulation or intentional purchase of the dollars to shore up the Korean currency's value. So that is may not be enough because of the. I think that the current situation is very close to some liquidity trap. Not yet plunged into liquidity trap situation, but as far as I'm concerned, the Chinese market already fallen into some kind of recession. 27 months consecutive producer price index has been decreased, and the CPI has been decreased also. So the Korea is, for the past 3 months, the CPI has been, well, once it was reported stabilized, but clearly it shows some declining. And so this implies that in addition to that, we have experience of a martial law decree, and even though it was temporary. So this could make help dampen the economy, and then domestic demand is dampened, and this is really bad for restore the growth rate of the economy. So what I'm most concerned, and also the Bank of Korea chairperson should emphasize how to restore the growth rate. In addition to unemployment rate is 2.2%, that is low. Employment people is stabilized, but because they simply accept the low nominal wage. So real wage is weakening. That means in the future, the consumption would be further decreased further. So that could lead to some liquidity trap situation or stagnant or deflation situation of the economy. So to break out those vicious cycle, I really urge the Bank of Korea should not only supply the money, but also they should reduce the interest rate, but also to shore up the Ministry of Finance and the Plan, or they should offer some kind of very strong fiscal policy, even though the deficit is increased, because all other countries also do that, except U.S. Because only November, only the U.S. economy prospect is good. All the other countries, including Europe, Germany, and all other countries, they try to reduce the interest rate and foster the growth rate of the GDP growth rate in the economy.
Right. Sam, Bloomberg recently published an interesting piece about the possible scenarios of Mr. Trump's tariff plans for different countries, I believe. What scenario can we expect for South Korea?
I read a report by the Korea Development Institute, if I remember correctly, as the source, which said that under Mr. Trump as president, Korea could potentially lose 0.67% of GDP because of the tariff plans that he imposes, and possibly another $45 billion in terms of export value if the tariff plans are imposed fully and the rest of the world retaliates against the U.S. and there's competition to dump their products at cheaper prices on another. And that would make businesses and exporters very, very difficult for South Korea because, as Mr. Song pointed out, this is a very heavily export-oriented nation that relies on, selling stuff and global demand in order to have its economy expand. And, with Mr. Trump coming back to power, there's also concerns that he would try to roll back many of the subsidies that the Biden administration had provided for Korean chip makers, Korean energy battery makers, automobile manufacturers, including Samsung and Hyundai, which are really some of the biggest engines of the Korean economy. So there's a lot of concerns about it. And, you know, on top of these concerns, we've just had this political turmoil that's making it very difficult to predict what's going to happen. And the Bank of Korea and the Finance Ministry have these headaches when, you know, they understand that this political turmoil is just going to make it hard for the won to regain its strength. And when they start to stimulate the economy, what happens is that actually helps weaken the won further, because if you're putting too much money into the markets, what happens is there's too much of the won, meaning the won is going to get weaker, right? So it's just one headache on top of another for the policymakers, and it's just not a great time to work and live as a policymaker right now in Korea, given all the headwinds coming from outside and from within.
Right, it sounds like a great dilemma right here. All right, that's all the time we have today. Sam, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And Professor Song, as always, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, like I said, that is all the time we have for this edition of Press Perspective. We return same time tomorrow, so do join us then.